So this video first aired in October 2025, then it got taken down because of copyright. And so I've taken this opportunity to enhance it. Better editing, some new voice recordings and, as you can plainly see, even a tiny bit of new animation. And so with that, I bring you the Bionicle 3 Web of Shadows Review Special Edition HD Remix and Knuckles featuring Dante from Devil May Cry. Also, the old animation is slightly worse than my more recent stuff because it's old animation.
Last time on Pasta Man 64. Now for the epic conclusion.
My head. Well, note to self, don't leave engine malfunctions unattended. I did, and now my ship is beyond saving, but I'm stuck on an uncolonized exoplanet. Oh look, is that a ghost? Of a television? Yeah, it is. Not sure how a television ended up on this planet, or became a ghost, but you know what, maybe that's for the better. See, it's a funny thing about looking for answers. Sometimes you're better off not finding them. Wait, is this showing something? Oh hey, it's the DVD menu for the 2005 direct-to-video film Bionicle 3 Web of Shadows. The first Bionicle film wasn't too bad, though the second one was a complete mess, so there's no guarantee this will be worth my time. Though on second thought, I've nothing better to do except slowly die of dehydration, so I guess I might as well give this movie a watch. So the movie begins with a shot of Makuta, the villain of the previous two Bionicle films, encased in a large crystal, and a mysterious hand pulls a chunk out of it, which then falls down and lands into, that's right, a third rocks in some sand bit. It basically explains that in a time before time, the plot of Bionicle 2 happened and Makuta got encased in a large crystal by the 6th Toa Metro. However, before the ending of Bionicle 2, they apparently returned to the city of Metro Nui to save the Matoran, who were the inhabitants of that city. Yeah, see, the entirety of the 2005 story for the Bionicle toy line basically takes place between two scenes in Bionicle 2 Legends of Metro Nui. It's a bit weird, and you could argue that it hurts this movie to be placed basically within another movie. I mean, just seeing the ending to the previous film seems you roughly know how this film is gonna end. But I'd argue that it doesn't really matter that much. I mean, just think of your favorite movie. I bet you rewatched it at least a few times and yet you still enjoyed it each time despite knowing how it ends. Because the fact that the movie surprised you the first time you watched it is unlikely to be a reason it's your favorite. And so I think that the "oh, it's a prequel so I already know how it ends" argument, which can be applied to movies like Web of Shadows, is a bit overblown. Especially since, even when you're watching the movie for the first time, knowing where everything ends up doesn't change the fact that you don't know how they're gonna end up there. But anyway, with the recap over, we see the aforementioned Toa attempt to cross some water, and they technically succeed. Emphasis on technically. They enter the city of Metro Nui to see that it's become this. Wenua points out that, given the state of things, it seems the Rahia archives must have been breached. And all the web specifically must have been caused by a nasty species of Rahi known as Viscerak. I actually really like this little exchange. They managed to perfectly show off the dynamic between these characters while also building tension, and it's done pretty naturally too. But moving on, Wakama over here, who contrary to the previous film seems extremely confident, suggests moving forward despite the seemingly dangerous situation. He then turns around and is immediately attacked by some mysterious enemy. The 6 now paralyzed Toa begin to bicker with each other before the enemy reveals itself to be a horde of so-called Viscerak. Think spiders if they didn't look like spiders. Later, this one Viscerak tells the leader of the Viscerak horde, Sidorak, don't get those two confused, that they captured the 6 Toa and put them into these pod things in their web. This is Rudaka. If Sidorak is the king of the Viscerak, Rudaka is the viceroy. She insists that the Toa aren't simply dropped to the ground. Because a ruler is judged by the quality of their enemies, Rudaka asks that Sidorak bring her the Toa's bodies. But later they get dropped to the ground anyway, so I guess Sidorak just forgot to listen. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before being dropped, the Toa, particularly Wakama, have a bit of a heart-to-heart. Mata claims it's Wakama's fault they're in this situation, to which Wakama apologizes, admitting that he simply isn't a good leader and, no matter how much he might want to, he can't just change. Then he's immediately proven wrong about the latter. They all transform into monsters basically, bursting out of their cocoons in the process before falling to the ground. As they fall, they are saved by these funny little flying guys. Later, Mata wakes up in whatever this place is. Not only is Mata horrified by his own reflection, but he doesn't even recognize the other Toa at first, initially mistaking them for a threat.
Mata, it's alright.
Alright? You call this alright?
We'll find a way, together.
'Cause that's what friends do.
I don't hear you saying that, Smelthead. What's the matter? Too busy cooking up another master plan? through making plans.
I really like this scene actually, because they don't at all downplay what's going on here. I mean, they could have easily just left it at, oh no, they're ugly now, but no, the character's reaction to their transformation is fully realistic. They're distressed and horrified by the fact that they've been turned into abominations. I'll go into more detail on this later on, but for now I'll just say that they react exactly how I would in this scenario. The only unrealistic thing here, you know, besides the obvious, is the "that's what friends do" line. But even that feels intentionally cheesy, since the movie clearly shows that this power of friendship mentality clearly doesn't help when you've been turned into a horrific freak of nature with seemingly no way to undo it. Oh yeah, friendship says everything? Well, look what happened when I followed this friend. The writing, at least in this particular scene, is something I'd praise if it appeared in a quote-unquote real movie. I wish I had individual fingers. But here it is in a movie created to sell toys to children. I really hope this is a sign of things to come and not just a one-off moment of, wait, how can there be thunder? Don't you need clouds for that? Whatever. While this is transpiring, Rudaka is having a one-way chat with the imprisoned Makoto. Turns out her grand plan is to drain the Toa of their elemental powers, so she can use them to release Makoto from his crystalline prison. It's never really explained why she wants to help Makoto. In fact, throughout the movie, she's consistently shown to be rather manipulative. She seems like someone who'd kill him while he's trapped to take his place, rather than someone who'd free him and willingly serve him. Incidentally, I find it peculiar how the Toa's elemental powers are a plot point here, because we've never actually seen the Tometri use their elemental powers at all. In fact, they weren't even mentioned in Legends of Metro Nui, despite how big of a focus the very first film had on them. And so it feels a bit odd when the elemental powers suddenly become relevant again in this third film. But I'm not gonna start criticizing this movie for trying to fix a problem that originated in a previous movie. So let's just get back to whatever plot antics are going on here. So the funny little flying guys from earlier introduce themselves as a Rahaga, with the red one in particular being named Norik. The other ones also have names, so they barely do anything, so who cares. They explain to the Toa that so-called Hodika venom is coursing through them and is what has turned them into these monstrous beings. And if a cure isn't found soon, they will remain in this state forever. However, there is a legendary creature known as Kitongu who can reverse the effects of the venom. Though finding him, if he even exists, will be difficult. With no better options, the Toa decide to go look for him. However, Wakama points out that they came here to rescue the Metoran, not go on safari. But when Norik points out that it doesn't really have a good way to do that in its current form, Wakama gets pissed and walks off to awkwardly stand in the corner, I guess. Norik tries to talk to Wakama, but Wakama ultimately gets sick of his fellow Toa and runs off. In the process, he gets himself captured by Viscerek. Again. Is it just me, or does he sound like a slowed down version of the Death Star hangar alarm?
Honored by your presence.
Forgive me.
Anyway, Rudaka shows up, and it's revealed that she captured Wakama without telling Sidorak, for she has a proposition for him, namely to lead the Viscerek horde and then use the fear of others to become a true leader. Rudaka then orders that Viscerek to throw themselves off the edge. This makes Wakama agree to do Rudaka's bidding, and understandably so. I mean, just imagine how many arguments you could win if you had an army of spiders at your disposal. Concurrently with all this, the Toa and Rahaga have gone to the Great Temple to look for clues to Kitongu's whereabouts, with the Toa standing guard outside. However, the Rahaga are soon attacked by Wakama. He kidnaps 5 of them, but leaves Norik behind to deliver a message to the other Toa. Wakama hands them over to Sidorak on a stick, in a pledge to ally himself with the king of the Viscerek. Sidorak agrees to at least talk to Wakama, and opens up this actually pretty nice looking door. Actually, on that note, this whole movie is nice looking. Very nice looking, in fact. Considering that all Bionicle movies so far have been yearly installments, it's been pretty impressive just how much the visuals have improved in just 2 years. Now, whether it's because of increased skill, budget, or better technology, I have no idea. But either way, the results speak for themselves. Mask of Light looked fine for what it was, but it paled in comparison to Legends of Metro Nui, and it's a complete piece of crap compared to Web of Shadows. And while I could go into detail on the sharper textures and better lighting technology, I think the main reason Web of Shadows looks so much better is because of its atmosphere. The textures, animation, lighting, etc. aren't just better on a technical level, they're used better. Every area feels like there's an endless world just beyond what the camera can see. It feels lived in yet abandoned, it's moodier and almost horror movie-esque at points. Every shot in this movie isn't just prettier to look at than what came before, it makes you feel more when you look at it. There's also an excellent use of visual storytelling, not only to convey information, but to make that information matter emotionally. Like here, for example.
I'm sorry I let you all down.
Again?
Now look, I'm not gonna pretend that it looks photorealistic or that it hasn't aged a day, because trust me, it has. It very much still looks like a CGI movie from the 2000s. But even so, it still looks great within its own limitations. In fact, I'd argue that this direct-to-video release looks better than some actual big screen releases from around this time. But getting back to the actual story of this film, the Towa discover that the Great Temple has been attacked. Norik explains to them what has happened, though everyone is initially in disbelief that Wakama would do such a thing. However, Norik explains that Wakama has changed, succumbing to the Hordika venom that will consume them all in time. And so the search for Kitongo continues, in the form of a montage. Legends of Metro New had a similar montage, which I wasn't too fond of. But I don't actually mind it here. In Legends of Metro Nui, there was this one bit where they had to find some great discs, but the movie just represented the whole segment with a brief montage. It didn't explain how they found the disc, it didn't explain how they succeeded despite lacking powers the movie spent a lot of time telling you they needed in order to succeed. Nothing. It was basically an entire movie's worth of plot points shoved into a minute-long montage, with all the negative consequences you might imagine. However, the similar montage in Web of Shadows works because nothing really goes unexplained. They know where to look for Kitongu because they found that information in the Great Temple. Nothing in this movie has stated that it would be impossible for them to make this journey, even if it might be difficult. The montage works since you can pretty easily imagine what the journey here looked like. Let me put it like this. The montage in the previous film felt like a clutch to allow the entire movie to fit into a very short runtime. But the montage in this movie felt like the filmmakers just didn't think it would be necessary to show the whole journey. Doing so wouldn't really reveal or explain anything we didn't already know or could easily infer from the rest of the film. Wait, did the ghost TV thing just disappear for a moment? I should probably check the atmosphere on this planet, make sure it's not filled with lead fumes or something. Well, it doesn't seem to be, so let's just get on with the movie. During the other Toa's journey, Wakama has talked with Sidorak. Rudaka convinces Sidorak to let Wakama join his side, promising that the other Toa are on their way and will pledge their allegiance just like Wakama. At the same time, said other Toa have reached Kitongu. Kitongu refuses to change them back to normal, however he does agree to help them get Wakama back. By the way, can I just mention that Kitongu's design, both in this movie and the actual set, kinda reminds me of the Golden Mech from Ninjago. They're both LEGO franchises, so who knows, maybe one inspired the other. Digressing aside, the Toa immediately begin attacking the Viscera Horde. Wait, we're starting the final battle already? Anyway, they fly up. Wait, hold on. They can fly? Okay, so ever since they became Hordika, the Toa had these things on their back called Rotuka spinners, that they can fire after putting this hinge thing on their back. What are Rotuka spinners? I have no idea because the movie never explains it. So you know what, let's look it up. Let's see here, what is a Rotuka spinner?
Rotuka spinners are wheels of energy with powers that vary based on whoever is making them. For example, the Toa Hordika's Rotuka are all based on their elemental powers.
So I guess they're circular lasers that have magic powers and also they make you fly sometimes. I think. So using their magic circular lasers to make it fly sometimes, they get up to this little spot here, but then they're immediately chased down again by Viscera.
Saw that confusion, it didn't accomplish anything.
Incidentally, Kitongu starts climbing a wall to reach Wakama. Sidorak tries and fails to shoot him down, and so Rudaka steps in and does it for him. But since Rudaka wants Sidorak dead without having to kill him herself, she convinces Sidorak to go down and make sure that Kitongu is defeated for good. Oh, and Norik says to capture Haga, who've just been hanging a stick on this balcony up until now. While they all join the Toa to fight the Viscera Horde, Matao fights Wakama in an effort to convince him to stop being evil. However, Wakama just absolutely beats the crap out of him, and it's not long before Matao is hanging on by a ledge, about to be killed. But Matao then apologizes for not believing in Wakama. He points out that their strength comes from the unity that Wakama is their leader, that Wakama is his leader, and this reminds Wakama of his destiny and duty. The movie tries to depict this whole fight as a big tragic battle, what with the dramatic, sad music and all, but honestly, it just doesn't work for me, because it simply doesn't feel earned. It plays on the interpersonal conflict between Wakama and Matao. Like, they don't always get along, but deep down they still appreciate each other enough that they can redeem each other in a battle like this or whatever. But we just haven't seen these two characters interact enough in this film for it to work. Like, yeah, there's some interaction between these two in the beginning of the film, and it's clear that they're trying to set up a critical yet caring kind of dynamic between these two. But once Wakama runs off early in the film, these two never even lay eyes on each other until this fight scene. and so the emotion of this fight, which relies on that dynamic, just falls flat in my opinion. Anyway, Wakama comes to his senses and the two of them rejoin the fight, just as Rodaka also enters the fight on top of a giant Wizard. All the two of them fire their magical circular lasers at her, but oh no, it turns out that that's exactly what she wanted, because she needed the combined elemental powers of all 6 Toa to release the Makuta from his prison. Which of course is exactly what happens. Also, Rodaka seemingly dies in the process and then her corpse is teleported away because... I don't know actually. Regardless, with the battle technically won, the Toa ask Kitongo to change them back to their normal selves. For though they made peace with the beast within, they need to be normal again if they are to save the Matoran, as was their mission from the very beginning. Kitongo obliges, the Toa are changed back, and they proceed to load the Matoran pods into these airships before setting off for the island of Metanui. Lastly, we cut to Turaga Wakama telling the story of this movie to Hali, Yowler and Takanuva from Mask of Light, bringing the whole trilogy full circle. And with that, roll credits. Oh look, there are spiderwebs in this one. So that was Bionicle 3, Web of Shadows. The last of the Miramax trilogy, as they're often called in Bionicle circles. So was this movie better than slowly dying of dehydration? Well, yeah, obviously. You'd have to fail pretty miserably for a slow, painful demise to be more entertaining than a motion picture. Let's talk about the characters. Whereas the previous movie tried and failed to focus on all characters at once, Web of Shadows returned to Mask of Light's method of intentionally underdeveloping most of the cast, in favor of putting most of the focus on one well-developed character. And what I mean by that is that 5 of the 6 Toa act more like a unit rather than as separate characters. Not saying they're high in mind, as they have very clear and distinct personalities, but they do all go on the same journey together while all experiencing more or less the same character arcs at more or less the same time. And I think this approach works well, as it allows us to become at least a bit invested in these 5 characters while still keeping the movie focused on the main character. That main character, of course, being Wakama. Now, Wakama in this movie is... well, there's a bit of a something in this one. Simply put, his character arc is that he starts out being artificially confident, fails, gives a try and lets his bad side take over before realizing the error of his ways and learning to possess authentic confidence. And I quite like the idea of his arc. I think we've all, at one point or another, tried our best to do something only to fail and get angry enough to give up. And Wakama's journey here is really just a more fantastical take on that behavior. One that shows it's okay to fail and that even if you briefly give up, you can still succeed if you try again. And I really like that. But that's just the basic concept of his character arc. And even the best ideas are useless without proper execution. So then how is that execution? It's... alright. His character arc does feel logical throughout the movie, but I can't help but think it's a little forced or rushed at some point. Like after he gets turned into Audika, it takes only like 5 minutes or so for him to decide to abandon his team. But to be fair, it's pretty explicitly stated that his aggression is being caused by the Audika venom in him. So I can't let that slide. Although I wish we got to see more of his malfeasance. After he kidnaps Urahaga, he doesn't really do anything until the end battle, and even there he only fights 1 Toa. Hell, even there, he only fights Matao because Matao got close to him. He himself never took any incentive to fight anyone. Now you could make the argument that his lack of incentive is meant to show there's still good in him, but I don't know, if the point is that the main character is turning evil, then maybe you should do, you know, things that are evil. But speaking of evil, I like the villains. The movie doesn't really explain where the villains come from or why Rudaka is helping Makuta, but I don't care cause I like watching these villains do their thing. Sidorak is just fun to watch, in part because you can tell his actor is just hamming it up so much you think it's about to show up in a Heathcliff comic. I guess the best way I can describe him is that he has all the pride of an archetypal master villain, but with a twist that he's lazy and a bit of a coward. I don't know, I just think that makes him enjoyable to watch. But the real standout villain here is definitely Rudaka. I just like how manipulative she is. And it's not that Rudaka has some magic spell she uses to manipulate people, or that everyone just loses their IQ whenever she enters the room. She manipulates people by just bringing up what seems like genuinely good points in a vacuum. Now, like I said earlier, she seems like someone who'd only be interested in serving herself and ruling over everyone else. So why the hell does she sacrifice her life to free Makuta? It'd be one thing if she wanted to free Makuta so he could take over the world and then backstab him to take his place as ruler of the universe without having to actually conquer the universe herself. But that can't be her motivation because last time I checked, you can't backstab people while you're dead. So I have no idea what her deal is. Now from what I've heard, she apparently survives in the Bionicle books and online serials, but I want to judge this movie on its own merits. So if the movie makes her look dead, then I'm gonna assume she is dead. Not to mention, even if she does survive, there's still zero indication of any ulterior motive behind her Makuta fanboyism. Or fangirlism, I guess. But aside from that, yeah, she's pretty cool. But you know what's even cooler? Like the best part of this film? The body horror. Which is not something I expected to say about a kids movie. Like I mentioned earlier, they could have very easily boiled down the Rika thing as, oh no, we don't look pretty anymore. And it would have been completely fine for them to do so. It's a kids movie for 7-year-olds after all. I don't think anyone in their right mind would criticize it for not depicting the horrors of sudden, unwanted metamorphosis. And yet, this movie dives head deep into this topic. Like yeah, there are a few jokes to lighten the blow and it's not gory or anything, but the characters' reactions to the new bodies is pretty much fully realistic. Both in terms of initial reaction and also the long-term effects it has on them. I mean, just look at the way they walk. As the movie goes on, they visibly struggle to walk like normal, but the walk doesn't just look more animalistic, it looks painful, as if their bones have been mangled in some kind of in-between state, and now they're forced to walk like beasts, yet not built to do so. And I think this works especially well because the entire movie, in particular its tone and aesthetic, is designed to emphasize it. Metro Nui, the glorious metropolis the Toa once called home, has been reduced to an abandoned wilderness covered in webs. Though everyone stays together, minus Vakama of course, there's a very clear, constant tension in the group, as if they're desperately trying to hold on to what they were as the Hordika venom corrupts them. Their only guidance are the Rohaga, and while they are helpful and comforting, the fact that these old Turaga-looking guys are still stuck as beasts means there's no guarantee the Toa will ever go back to normal. Body horror like this will feel right at home in a horror movie for adults, and so to see it appear in a kids movie created to sell toys, and done so well too, it honestly blows my mind. But anyway, that's Web of Shadows for you. Just like that, I watched the third and final Bionicle movie made by the joint efforts of Miramax and Creative Capers. So you know what? Let's rank them. So Legends of Metro Nui is instantly works one, cause for all its good intentions, it's a mess. So that leaves Mask of Light and Web of Shadows to fight for the top spot. Now I feel like Mask of Light is probably the quote-unquote objectively better movie, as it has better structure and pacing if you ask me. But you know what? I think I prefer Web of Shadows despite that, because it just makes me feel more. Yeah, some things go unexplained, and yeah, some things feel a little rushed, but I don't know, the atmosphere and the tone and themes and all that, I just get a stronger reaction from it. And isn't that the ultimate goal of not just movies, but entertainment in general? To make you feel something, to spark an emotional reaction somewhere deep inside your empty husk of a soul. And so with that in mind, I'm gonna have to give Web of Shadows the title of the best in the Bionicle trilogy. Sure, Mask of Light has a better structure, but Web of Shadows has a stronger aura. Yes, a shame that it's still hard to recommend. I mean, its status as a mid-call means you have to watch the worst film in the Bionicle trilogy before you can watch this one. Oh wait, hang on a minute. Seems I accidentally paused the movie during the credits. Why was that the post-credits scene? Did they just sound like a jump scare or wait, what the? Wait, where'd the TV go? And again, how can there be thunder without cloud?
Are you Besta Man 64?
I've been called on a few times, but my real name is
Do
actually...
you fear meeting the dead? To join in this place? The ones whose lives have been shed.
Well, I mean, doesn't everyone?
Yet despite your impending demise, you have willingly witnessed what most would despise. Before you are television, only one thing could it show. Yet with focus you are watched its morbid screen glow. Ever since I was carried to a dumpster, an afterlife I have longed for. Now your viewing pleasure has given me peace henceforth. My gratitude you thus have earned. Therefore I shall grant you the thing for which you have yearned.
You mean like a wish?
Accept my gratitude and what I wish to give. Before on this planet you will sadly cease to live.
I see. Can you fix my ship? Actually, wait, how about this? Can you restore everything to how it was before the thruster on my ship exploded? Except this time the thruster isn't about to explode.
I shall grant you the thing you most desire, as a final act before I attain the rest I aspire.
Oh my god, the ghost of the television did it! Everything's back to how it was before. My suit's been repaired. Even the Bionicle 2 Legend of Metro Nui DVD I put on the console is still... Wait a minute, that's not Legend of Metro Nui. What is this? Bionicle the Legend Reborn? Oh no, I've heard things about this one. Terrible things. Things that would make even a grown man. Wait, if this was here, then where actually is my copy of Bionicle 2? Do I even own that movie anymore? This is where I put Knuckles from Sonic the Hedgehog and Dante from Devil May Cry on screen so that the opening bit isn't false advertising.